Morning. Thank you everyone for coming. It's our fifth Saturday together. For those of you who've come for the first time, this is the fifth Star Parent event, and we are lucky to have the two co-founders we have for the Vega School, which is coming here, Sandeep and Dr. Stephen Edwards. Both of them happen to be here today. Instead of me introducing Steve, which I don't think I'm properly capable of, I'll ask Sandeep to do that. I think he'll give a very brief introduction. But before that, thank you so much for coming here. We hope to wrap up this session before 12:30. But after 12:30, in case anybody wants to stay back and interact with Steve or any one of us, we are all available here. Just so you know, today's event is sponsored by IntelliTots, the preschool. Pooja is here from IntelliTots and some other team members are here. And Vega Schools, the new school that's starting in 2016 in Gurgaon. I'll just ask Sandeep, our co-founder, to come and introduce Steve.
Morning everyone, thanks so much for taking your Saturday morning out and coming here. I know that Steve doesn't like praise, so I'm going to try to do this as briefly as possible. In my 3-year journey of traveling around the world and visiting progressive schools, I came across Steve, and while there's a lot of talk about what is great education, why is great education needed, and so on, there's relatively less talk about how great education can happen. And that's something that Steve has done all his life. And he's been advising the White House, the World Bank, United Nations, and scores of schools around United States and other parts of the world. He's also been responsible for creating a school, co-creating a school in the US, which is a Vega partner school, which was rated as the #1 magnet school in the US. So without saying much more, I'll welcome Steve.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. Good morning. Sandy said that I've advised the White House. I have, but they don't listen to me. So that's the only problem. But it's good to have you all here, and thank you for coming. And we'll spend 45 minutes or so together, but happy to stick around till about midnight tonight. Then I have to catch my plane. So that's about as late as I can stay. But we have a short program here, and some of this is going to be kind of interactive. So I hope you'll be willing to participate. And feel free to get up and move around. Everyone who knows me knows that I can't sit still very long. I was the child in school that had to be moving constantly, couldn't sit still, short attention span, and so I'm more than willing to accommodate anybody who's in that same situation. Well, the topic today is self-confidence and building self-esteem and confidence in our children, which I think is something obviously extremely important, and obviously you feel it's important as well. But we're going to start off with a few things to help kind of lay the groundwork for that, and then get into a little discussion on that. And I surely don't profess to be an expert on anything. I've just been on this side of the grass for long enough, and have 40 years in this profession, and I also have 5 children. So I've had some time to experiment, with 5 children. You learn a lot, and you make a lot of mistakes. But hopefully in the long run, you're able to navigate that and learn and work together with your spouse and with your children's schools to make the best opportunities for your children. And we'll talk some more about that. What I'd like to do is just have you take a minute, talk to your neighbor at your table, and really, why did you come today? Why are you here, and what do you hope to get out of this? Maybe you heard there was free coffee, and you said, "Hey, I need a coffee this morning," or whatever. But why did you come this morning? So take just a minute, talk to the people at your table, and I'm going to have you share a couple of your ideas with us. Okay? Go ahead. What's that? Am I good? Okay, let's come back together. I always say after about 2 or 3 minutes, you start moving on to other topics. So, where did you get that top? Oh, it's so nice. Where's that scarf come from? So, we come together today, and kind of with I'm sure with a bit of a common theme here and a common interest. But I don't want to make assumptions. So, just give me Tell me a little bit about what you talked about. Folks, at your table, what was something that you talked about at your table as to why you're here and what might help make this time together successful? You know, there's no book, you know, there's no magic formula for raising children. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, just had a baby, so I became a grandfather not too long ago. And before the baby was born, she told me exactly how the baby was going to behave, what time the baby would sleep. The baby won't cry. The baby will probably change itself by, 3 months old, because she had everything figured out. And then after about 2 weeks, she was calling me crying on the phone, and, the baby won't sleep, her husband's not helping, all these things that, happen in every household. So we can have the best laid plans, but it's an adventure. And validation is important, and saying, am I doing the right things? It's hard to know. It's hard to know. How about you folks? You had something, sir.
Yeah, we were quite inspired by Sandy organizing these sessions before as well.
Okay.
So one of the people on the table felt that we would like to come and hear you out since you're one of the co-founders. I personally am very keen to learn a lot more about the 21st century education. I've been working closely with Sandy, so I do have certain fixated ideas on what should be changed in the Indian education system. And I'm here to participate and learn as to how I can be of any value to be able to first learn for my daughter, who's 5 years old,
okay,
and then be able to be probably a small ambassador in trying to bring about a big change in the education industry.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. I've had the chance in America to work in 49 states and internationally work with education in about almost 50 countries. And what you find traveling around the world is that we're a lot more alike than we are different. And what parents want, it doesn't matter where you are, we all want the same things for our children, really. How we get there, we might take different paths and so on. But also in education, what I find is that schools and educational systems are struggling with the same types of things. And it's very comforting to do what you know. And when you talk about a different paradigm and a different way of teaching and learning, that's scary for some people because it's maybe not what we experienced. So we'll talk some about that too. As we think about a different learning dynamic, sometimes that can be a bit frightening because we're not sure, is that the right way to go? But we'll talk some more about that. How about this table kind of expanded, you kind of grew over here. What was the central theme of what you folks talked about?
Us, it's a very exciting thing. I mean, we have learned a kind of method of education, a particular methodology we've been following, but it's very exciting to know of different ways. And again, what we said about validation, we have been doing certain things to know whether what we have been doing is, it's going the right way or not. So we are basically to enhance our knowledge, to learn what better we can do, because the children, our kids have really grown up.
Okay.
But the children we are working with, they are 2 to 6 plus right now.
Okay.
And we are planning to grow. And this is something which is very essential. If a child is confident, I think rest of the things are all sorted when you're dealing with life. And confidence is the essential thing. And when we lack confidence somewhere, in spite of all our knowledge and skills, we lag behind.
Yes.
So I think we are expecting to take away quite a bit.
Okay, well, you've got a big notebook there. There's a big notebook. You can write a lot. So, and if you get bored, you can write a grocery list, So, how about you folks over here? What did you talk about?
Yeah, I guess we have kids around the same age, so starting to explore options for schools, and so just wanted to find out a little bit more about the new types of things that you guys are doing.
Okay, well, based on everything you folks have shared, we're going to have to extend this to about a 3-week session. So let's move on a little bit here. That was very helpful to me because you need to know your audience, so to speak. And you folks are the clients. You are the people who are exploring, looking. You have options for your child's education. And we think we have some exciting things to share with you and some exciting opportunities with Vega. But we'll talk more about that. All right, so we did that. You shared some of your thinking. Okay, I'd like you to take on the post that you have, think about what are your greatest concerns and fears regarding your child's education, and place those on the post-it here in front of you. What I'd like you to do is just write each concern on or fear on one post-it, okay? So if your biggest, just to give you an example, if your biggest fear is my child's safety, put that on one post-it. If you have a second fear, write it on the second post-it, third fear on a third post-it, okay? And when I'll know you're finished when you just come up and just you can paste them on top of each other, but put your number one concerns on top of each other here, your number two in this circle, and your third greatest concern in the outside circle, okay? That way you get to move around. So I'd like you to see if you have three concerns. If you don't, if you only have one major concern, that's fine, okay? Then you're going to post it. Once you've got it, oh, you're quick. You're quick. So once you get it done, just put it up on the chart here. That's it. Okay. You can put them on top of each other. That's fine. So is this the teacher group here? Are you the teacher team? Not you. I know you're first bite. Thank you. Okay. I think we're in good shape. Thank you. Now, there are places we could take this and frame it and hang it on a wall, and they would call it art. So I like the different colors. Why do you think I ask you to do that? Become aware. Yes. Okay, good. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Okay, instantly cognitive way of thinking. The other thing that I'm trying to get at, too, is, you know, my wife's famous quote, I don't know how famous it is, it's famous in our household, is that those who do the work do the learning. Those who do the work do the learning. So I get to take a couple sips of coffee while you're doing the work. See, at the end of the day, the children should go home tired, not the teachers. But tired, but also filled with energy and excitement and passion for what they did and the experiences they had. When we think about some of these concerns, and I'm going to go through these later on today and take them off and kind of organize them, because I'm sure we'll see them cluster in several different areas. That's what typically happens. You probably could narrow these down to probably 5 or 6 key concerns. But when you think about those concerns, I'm just going to ask a couple of you to share a couple, what you wrote down. What did you write down as a main concern? Okay, survival, okay. And I hope your child thrives in the 21st century, okay? But you know that so you're thinking, your concern is a long-term concern. It's not an immediate concern for this week. This is a long-term concern. Good, thank you. But there's other ways to assess learning than just putting them in words. That doesn't mean we don't want her to learn and be a successful writer, but there's other ways to tap into her talents. Good, sir, how about you?
While too concerned, but one of the major is that whatever a child does should do it confidently.
Okay, so she'll do it with some confidence. Good, great, wonderful. How about you, ma'am?
Mine would be safety, or balance that out would be also overcoming fear. I don't want my child to be paranoid about doing things, but yes, do it within.
Okay, good. Yes, ma'am? Okay. Okay. Okay, so you're thinking about it through your lens, I feel like the reflection of what I was there. Good. Good, thank you. Somebody else, let's see. Sir, what did you have?
I have 2 concerns. One is that I want my child to be passionate about whatever she does in her life. So if the school can help instill passion in her and help her find her goal in life, what she is most passionate about. And the second biggest concern for me is physical safety. Physical safety here in India comes about what I am talking about is the right circle of friends, because friends are big influencers. Kids over here are getting into drugs at a very young age, getting into alcohol drinking alcohol at a very young age. So, or say bunking from school and getting caught in one incident. One incident can actually change your life. So there is that safety concern, that physical safety concern, which is very important. She makes it through school safely and sound.
Okay.
I speak to a lot of parents around it, and it's the same fear that I have too, is balancing this fun inquiry-based learning with success. Our key metric is around exam taking, university applications, getting through, and if you don't get through that in 12th grade, then you're going to be off track. Whereas a lot of children are not good exam takers. They learn through inquiry-based learning, they learn through asking questions, and we continue to focus on that. And how do you balance the success and the learning well?
Big challenge.
Big challenge.
Big
And
challenge.
a lot of
Big
parents
challenge.
struggle with it. They want their child to be happy. We want them to be doing the things they enjoy. But at the end of the day, they have to be good at taking exams. And it has to be balanced, because you really need certain skills for that, which need to be groomed as well, the grit and the exam taking, which you might not be doing it when you're just doing this.
Well, yeah, and I believe you can do both. I really do. And I have a co-founder of Vega, but I have other companies that I run, and I've hired some really good test takers, and I basically fired them very quickly because they didn't have the skills that they needed to really thrive in the 21st century world of work or career. I don't really like the word work, because I think, if you follow your passion and you live your passion, you really don't work. Because you get up every morning and you say, I am so fired up and I'm so excited about what I'm doing today that, it's just energizing. I come here to India and I sleep maybe 4 hours. And last night was the night I was sleeping the best, and my wife calls and it's like 2:30 in the morning here, so then I didn't go back to sleep. But she had something exciting to tell me about one of our children, so that was good too. But I really believe we can achieve both, and we'll share some thoughts on that. Again, we don't have 3 weeks for this, but your concerns, your questions are very legitimate, and they're personal. Because this is your child, and there's nothing more important to you than your child. I was a school head for 16 years. And every time that a parent came in to meet with me, or I went to meet with a parent, often I would go to parents' homes to meet with them. I would go to even their place of work to meet with them, because I think it's that important that we sit down with parents. And anytime I would meet with them, my number one goal was to put myself in the role of the parent. Because there's nothing more important to you in your life than your children, I'm sure. And when I could do that, I looked at it through their lens. And I could say, I understand. That doesn't mean I always agreed with everything they would say. I'm not saying that. But I needed to be able to look at it through their lens. That's something that's very important to Sandy and myself and the whole Vega team, is that we want to be able to put ourselves in your shoes and look at your child as a person, as an individual. Because each child, there's similarities among children, but each child is unique. Each of you are unique. You each have different skills, talents, experiences, passions, and we need to tap into those. So let's talk some more about that. So thank you for doing this, because we're going to use that to kind of pull that together and make some sense out of it. So when you think about what's a good school, what is a good school? I'm going to let you do that at your tables. But I'd like you to, were you going to respond to that? Yeah, I'm going to ask you to do it at your table. So just jot down a few ideas on what you think makes a really good school. But think about it now through the lens of your child. A good school for your child, okay? Just take 2 or 3 minutes and jot down a few thoughts and share them with your table buddies here, and then we'll share out, okay?
How about you folks? Ma'am, what did you put down? What did you have?
Well, we thought about it through the kids' eyes. So for the kids, it's most of all has to be fun and engaging. They have to have a lot of friends to like the school and to enjoy going to school. So the teamwork and two-way communication is always important. That they also have the right to voice their opinions and be heard and be listened to. it has to be a great ground for expression, and there should be an encouragement of development of passion and whatever the kids like to do. And for that, obviously, school does have to have a good infrastructure to support the interests and fun and teamwork of children. And it has to be a safe environment when the kids do feel safe and cared for emotionally and physically.
Okay, good. You know, when you think about engagement, when are you engaged? When are you engaged? Think about a time when you're engaged. Give me an example, sir. When are you engaged in an activity?
I'm engaged right now.
You're engaged right now?
When you like
Okay.
something.
It's two-way.
When you like something.
It's two-way street and
Two-way street?
Yeah, and it's you know, ensuring that your point of view is heard and you appreciate the other person's point of view.
Okay, so it's a shared community. It's a conversation. It's a communication thing. When you said when you have.
From a kid's perspective, I would like that, when my kid goes to school, she should be happy when she's back. And she should be excited that she's going to school tomorrow again. And that is when I will say that she's getting engaged with the educator over there, with the activities, what she's doing, and she's happy. That's my main criteria out of the school.
Okay, all right.
And also that the school should prepare her for the challenges which she's going to face in the latter part of the life, depending on the age, of course. So, developing her internally and externally.
Okay. Would you folks agree that, are you engaged when you're doing something you like to do?
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Or you're somewhere you like to be, and you get to pursue things that are of interest to you? When it's relevant. Relevance is huge, right? We talk about what's known as, I'm sorry, I'm not excluding you folks at all. You get behind these poles and people disappear. But we talk about the 3 R's, okay? And the 3 R's for me are rigor, relevance, and relationships. I'm sorry about my printing. But rigor, relevance, and relationships. 3 critical elements in any educational setting, any life experience. And I put relationships as a foundational piece. If you don't know the children, if educators don't know your child and what makes your child tick, and how they think, and what their likes are, and what their interests are, you're going to have a hard time really engaging that child. Because the opportunity and creating opportunities to pursue one's passion is really important. I talk to a lot of people in my life who are very unhappy in their jobs. They don't like what they do. Well, then my question is, why don't you do something else? Because you do have that choice. But I think many times maybe nobody ever really helped them identify what their passions are, and really help them develop the skill sets and things that go along with that passion. When we think about relevance, and one of you mentioned that, a relevant learning experience means it has meaning to you, right? Now, what's relevant to me may not be relevant to you. We could all have different interests and so on, but also taking that relevance and putting it in the context of where that child's at developmentally. So making that relevant experience developmentally appropriate to the child. When you do those 2 well, the rigor takes care of itself. Because you can challenge children at the highest level. Because you've got a good rapport with them, you've got a relationship with them, you know what they like, you know what motivates them. You're giving them relevant learning experiences. They will work harder than you ever could imagine. And they'll want to come back the next day. Because they're going to say, this was so exciting. And then they're saying it's fun. Because there are people who don't think learning should be fun. Oh, no, they need to do this, they need to do this. I don't care if they have fun or not. Well, when you're engaged in something, you're usually having fun. Right? So think about those 3 R's, rigor, relevance, and relationship. Really important. And some other things you triggered for me is something that I call the 40-40-40 rule. And the 40-40-40 rule is what you learn in school, does it matter in 40 days? Will it matter? Will it still matter in 40 months? Or will it still matter in 40 years? Think about those skills that are critical 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And how do we foster those so your child can thrive in this rapidly changing world? But also be a person of compassion, a person with empathy. We talk about values. I would argue that if we listed all those things that we value, what we put on, I bet there'd be a lot of coherence among those. And I think that that is something that you don't necessarily stop and say, well, we're going to do values now, but it's embedded in the curriculum, it's embedded in the school program, it's embedded in how the adults treat the children and how they behave and how they interact with children. As you said, sir, it's critical that you have educators who love children. Some people go into a profession because they love the subject. You know, I was always told that elementary school, primary school teachers love their children. Secondary teachers love their subject. And university professors love themselves. I think there's some truth to that.
Why is that so? The university professors love themselves?
I don't know. Having taught at 2 universities and I've been a professor, I don't think I love myself, but I could be the exception. But I think that, you know, all my experiences in graduate school were that they would constantly be sharing me all the things they wrote, what they authored. Oh, here's a great book to read. It happens to be written by me. But you know, typically you tend to find primary school teachers much more engaged in that relationship piece. But it doesn't change. It doesn't change. You know,
I guess the ego part of it doesn't exist in that.
Yeah, the ego piece is small. And I know I have children who are older children, and what I found as they got older, that they still have the same basic needs as my younger children, you know, as when they were younger. And even though their bodies get bigger and now they're shaving and all those things, they still have the same basic needs. So I think there are just some core human needs that we all require. Well, we could spend a lot of time talking about this, but let me share this and tell me if this is the kind of experience, is this a good school? It says, this week we took a test to see if we're ready for the test that tests our test skills. And then the other child says, wait until kindergarten. Too. We talk about this dilemma or this dichotomy of testing, and we internationally are driven very much by a test. But I look at a test as a piece of a pie. And if it's the whole pie, I think it presents it creates limiting opportunities for children. Think about that 40-40-40 rule. Think about the skills you use in your life every day. And where did you learn those skills? How many corporations hire people out of college and retrain them? They retrain them. They go through a whole new training program because they don't have the skills that they need. So if we say testing is a piece of this pie, there's a lot of other pieces of the pie that we need to examine and create opportunities for those to flourish. Now, we already did that. Okay. Is this what you want for your child? As you can see, this child had a different thought, a different idea. But the teacher says, no, I want you all to think the way I think. We see in education at about grade 3 that conformity start to become embedded. And children stop becoming free thinkers. And they become compliant learners. Because the teacher says, this is what I want, and I want it all the same way from everybody, So if I want to do well in school, I have to give it to them the same way. Now, that requires a different mindset for a teacher. And if you're looking at the uniqueness in each child, then you're going to let that child develop on their own, express themselves in different ways, share their thinking. This is actually a picture from a school I visited not too long ago in Copenhagen. And I just happened to pull it up this morning, and you look at, I know this is a cartoon, but then you look at this learning experience. Nobody's sitting in rows, nobody's sitting in seats, and with a teacher in the front of the class. The children are actually writing on the walls. The children are standing on desks. Maybe that's not safe, I don't know, but it's not that far to fall. And children's bones are pretty flexible, I guess. So they'd be all right. This child's using technology. If you were actually in that classroom, there was a lot of different experiences happening. And these kids were having fun. They were having fun. Now somebody might say, well, but are they learning? How do I know if they're learning? But what I did is I sat down and I talked to children. And I started talking about what they were doing and what they were learning. And most importantly, how they're applying that learning. Because application is critical. You can know a lot of stuff, but if you can't do anything with it, what good is it? And these children were able to talk with such enthusiasm about what they were learning and what they were doing and the different centers they were at. And this classroom happened to be the Charles Dickens classroom. So I asked one child, why Charles Dickens? Well, he said, Charles Dickens is one of the greatest authors of all time. And he started talking to me about Charles Dickens and some of the things he had written. I said, well, why? What's your favorite Charles Dickens story? And he said, well, this happens to be my favorite story. I said, why is it your favorite story? Well, the character in the story, he was doing character analysis. He was talking about the theme, the plot, as opposed to sitting at a desk and writing down. The plot is, the main character is. It's a different learning dynamic. In education, in my experience, primarily worldwide, we operate off a deficit-based model rather than a strength-based model. We constantly look at things that children don't do well and sometimes continually reinforce that, and then the child, it impacts your self-esteem because you go, oh, I don't do this well, I don't do that well. I was a child who was retained in school. I was retained because I was a non-reader in grade 4. If you're a non-reader in grade 4 in America, the prognosis for you is not very good. None of my teachers, 50-some years ago would have ever believed that I'm doing what I'm doing now. But they only looked at a very narrow window. And later in life, they discovered, some dyslexia for me. And, in kindergarten, I was colorblind, but they told my parents he didn't know his colors. Nobody ever bothered to look and say, oh my gosh, he's colorblind. Makes it pretty hard to know your colors when you're colorblind. But if we think about operating from a strength-based model and say, let's identify those strengths. No, so how do we do that? One thing we're going to do at Vega, and Sid and I have already been talking about this and working on this, is to have pre-assessment of your child. Not to say what your child doesn't do well, but what does your child do well? What are your child's strengths? And we can sit there and share with you your child's strengths. That personalization of the learning experience is critical. So, through your child being able to keep a portfolio all through school of their experiences and highlighting those things, that they're doing really well is critical. And then they get to talk about those things they do well. They get to write about those things. They get to present about those things. They get to explore those things. And when that happens, you ignite that fire in that child that says, now at 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, all the way through, I want to go to school. But that's critical that we have teachers who are able to operate from that perspective. Each of the children in this class are exploring different things, but they're exploring things that happen to be of interest to them at the time, at that moment. But then we also challenge them to look at different things as well and work with different teams and different groups of students. I'm sorry, I'm rambling here. Go ahead, sir, you had something.
This might be just a snapshot of what this school is all about. But you mentioned that there's no formal sitting arrangements, they can free to do But my feeling is that sometimes sitting in a class wearing the same color uniform and maybe in a certain order also instills a sense of discipline, which also is important later on. So do you think there's a dichotomy there, like it's too based on creativity that you let what your child wants to do, but also have something which instills them a sense of following an authoritative figure in front, which might make them say better law abiders in the future or have a sense of discipline? So.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me talk about uniforms. There is no empirical evidence that says that uniforms have any impact on improving learning. No empirical evidence that says that. Now, you don't have the advantage, didn't have the advantage of seeing this classroom. Let me just say this. In my career, I visited maybe 5,000 schools around the world. I've only seen maybe 7 of those 5,000 that I would want my child in. Okay? Now, most of them are very structured, teacher in the front, lecturing in front of a chalkboard or now a whiteboard technology, kids sitting in rows. There's time for that. There's some, there's time when a teacher lectures. I understand that. There's information needs to get across. But this classroom, for example, the teacher there had complete command of that learning environment. The children knew their role, their responsibility, and the teacher was able to do that in a way that was non-threatening, but there was clear discipline in the classroom. Nobody was fooling around. And then we talk about engagement. See, people misunderstand being on task for being engaged. See, if I'm sitting at my desk and I have my notebook out and I happen to be looking at you, well, then they think I'm engaged. I could be thinking about what I'm doing after school, all these things. That's being on task. That's not being engaged. Being engaged is when you are actively involved in that learning experience. You're immersed in that learning experience. Okay, I'm going to go on here because of time. Well, let's talk a little bit more about this whole idea of self-esteem. So I'm going to tell you all the mistakes I made with my 5 children, and all you have to do is write those down and don't do those things. Then you'll be all set. But, and how many of you have more than one child? Okay? If you have more than one child, are they exactly the same? Their personality is the same? No. Their personality is the same. They didn't walk at the same time. They didn't, get off the bottle at the same time. They all do things differently. All 5 of my children are unique to their, in their own way and all different. And but that's the power of us as humans, that we have similarities, but we each have our uniqueness. And in school, I'm constantly working and communicating with my children's teachers, and my wife does more of this, about, do you know my children's interests? Do you know my children's skills? Do you know what he likes to do and how he learns? And that's something that's critically important to us at Vega. We want to make sure that we know those and create that learning dynamic. In education right now, ladies, I'm sure you're familiar with this term, it's called the differentiated learning. Very common phrase in education. And what does that really mean? That doesn't mean that you get one worksheet and you get a different worksheet and you get a different worksheet, but really the learning experience is personalized to you. We do this through centers. We do this through activities that take place inside the classroom, outside the classroom, outside the school building. But really tapping into each child's interests and so on. Now, if we think about, what is self-esteem and why is it important? Why is self-esteem important? We've highlighted some of this, but why is it important? How many of you feel you're confident? Anybody not confident? You don't want to raise your hand because you wouldn't want to say not confident.
So but I like to say I'm confident about a lot of things, but I'm not confident about a lot of things also. So it depends on what I know.
It's situational, right? It's situational because depending on your situation, we've probably all been in situations where we lack confidence, right? But the more experiences you have that stretch you, but don't put you, in a place that is a panic zone. I like to demonstrate it this way. I think if you can't explain something in a circle or a triangle, it's not worth explaining. But I talk about these 3 circles. In the middle is the comfort zone. We have a lot of confidence when we're in our comfort zone, I would say, right? When you're at home with your family, you're probably very confident. What happens there, what goes on there, because it's a place that's familiar, you know it. Well, the next zone is called the growth zone. The outside zone is called the panic zone. Okay? I'll give you an example with my children. They put them a little bit in a panic zone, but I brought them back to the growth zone. Last time I was in India, I brought my entire family. Okay? So I have children. My youngest child is 9. Okay? And I had my 9-year-old, 11-year-old, and 14-year-old with me, the 3 of the 5, and my wife. And we went to visit the Taj Mahal. I mean, you got to do that, you know. You check off your list of the wonders of the world, kind of thing, you know. And I just think it's unbelievable that my children at their age have these experiences. Now, I'll also tell you, I took them out of school to do that, because 20 years from now, 40-40-40 rule. 20 years from now, they will remember that experience. They won't remember the worksheet they missed in school that day. And the school gets frustrated with me, but my wife, they do all kinds of learning activities. Well, we pull up, how many of you have been to the Taj Mahal? Probably most of you, right? So, you know, you have to park out in an area and then you walk down a road just a quarter of a mile long or something. But when we parked out there in the car, people just stormed the car because they wanted to be a tour guide. And we had the windows down, and the people are, you know, like, I want to be a guide, I want to be a guide, I want to be a guide. Well, my little ones were like kind of freaked out by that experience. They'd never had that experience before. So for about 10 minutes after that, they were still a little shaken by that experience. So that was surely outside their comfort zone and maybe put them a little bit in the panic zone. But that's the teachable moment. And I'm not saying we intentionally put people in a panic zone, but what we did is we brought it back to the growth zone. So I sat down with them, even before leaving the Taj Mahal, and I asked them some questions, an inquiry process approach. I said, do you trust me? My children. Oh, yes, we trust you, we trust you. I said, do you think I have your best interest and safety at heart? Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, Dad, yes, yes. So I said, do you think I would intentionally ever put you in a situation where you would be unsafe? No. So I said, what just happened a half hour, an hour ago? You were completely safe, okay? It was an experience that was unfamiliar to you, but you were safe. And then they started thinking about it, and we talked about it. What's most fascinating to me is 6 months later, when people come, and people stay at our house is like a hotel. There's people from all around the world staying at our house all the time. So, but I love that because my children get to interact with different people and get different experiences. So they were explaining to a friend of ours from Germany about their experience, and that's what they talked about. They talked about that experience. They didn't talk about seeing the Taj Mahal. They talked about that experience, and they shared some of the things that I talked about. That was a growth zone opportunity for them. We're comfortable here. We need to constantly, in our educational system, move children into situations that take them outside their comfort zone, but don't put them in a panic zone. I might have taken it too far that day with my own kids. But in education, we've got to create those opportunities for them to grow, because that's where that confidence goes. Now, what do you think next time my children are in a situation similar to that with me in the car? Do you think they'll be more comfortable? Yeah. I've now grown their comfort zone. So they have more confidence in that situation. They'll know how to respond. But if you're never in different situations, you don't know how to do that. Many people are uncomfortable speaking in front of a group of people. You know what? I never get 100% comfortable with that. Even this morning, Sandy said, are you excited about it? Yes, and I'm always a little nervous. Because I want to do a good job, okay? I want you people to leave here and say, it was worth my 2 hours to come here today. So, you know, a little bit of anxiety is okay. No, because it doesn't get us in that panic zone. So to build confidence, we need to keep growing the zone. But that only happens when we create different experiences. Think of children, and I know schools where this happens, by the time they graduate from high school, they've given 200 presentations in front of even business people and so on. Think about that when you go out into wherever you go, no matter where you go. Think about being in situations and having children in situations where they're interacting with people from the community, with business people from the community. Because many times people walk into a room and if they don't know anybody, they're very uncomfortable. They're not confident. Have you ever, you don't have to answer this, but I'm sure at some time in your life, because I did, I went to maybe a party, and I don't know anybody here. Oh, what do I do? You know, do I stand in the corner? Do I get a cup of coffee? Who do I talk to? You know, what if they don't want to talk to me? You know, but as you create those experiences, that grows. Well, to become more intrinsically motivated, I believe you've got to be able to give them specific praise about something that they're doing well. Then, when they begin to understand their skill set, then you have to stretch them. As they get reinforced for things they're doing well, they're going to want to do more of that. And I think the biggest danger, in my opinion, is to say, well, if you do that, or redo that, or try to get, I'll give you this, or I'll give you that. Because all you're doing now is saying, because the reward will never be enough. They'll always want a bigger reward. I have parents who say, well, when you do this, you'll get a car, or, you know, depending on their age, or you'll get to watch more TV tonight. Well, then the child will quickly do it. But, you know, the other thing is in school, when children don't see meaning in what they do, there's not a lot of motivation. So that intrinsic motivation becomes higher when you understand the compelling why. Here's why I'm doing this. Here's why we did. Oh my gosh. Now I see that has value, that's important. I'm going to put more effort into that. Now, that doesn't happen just in one conversation. That's an experience that goes on and on and on and is reinforced over multiple years. I would also say that children learn by doing. And I said those who do the work do the learning. Children need to experience success, but again, it's got to be authentic. I love the word authentic because it's got to be real. And they must try things on their own. And when they try things on their own, you've got to let them struggle. Many people don't want their children to struggle. Oh, I'll do that for you. Here, I'll fix that for you. Oh, no, you. But what message you're sending to them every time you intervene is that you don't have confidence in them. Because I was trying to do this, but well, no, mommy stepped in and did it for me. And every time mommy steps in, or the teacher steps in, or dad steps in, they start to lose confidence. They don't articulate that to you. They don't say, oh, you're causing me to lose confidence, but you're reinforcing that. Struggle is good. Failure is positive. Because we learn from those experiences. Okay, now try it. Did you try a different way to do that? Okay, good. You tried a different way. How did that work? Much better. Much better. Ah, good. I got reinforcement for doing that and trying it and doing it a different way. And thinking about teaching perseverance and resilience. Because I think a lot of people, I use an American term, fold their tent when things don't work. That means I folded my tent, I'm done, I'm not going to do it anymore. You know, teaching perseverance and being able to go and repeat a task and try it again and do it again. And that's why when I get to school, I like to delay grades, talking about grades. Because the moment you put a grade on something, the child stops. We all experience that. When the grade's on it, I'm done, I don't want to do it anymore. Quality. Producing quality. When they see quality, that becomes real. Then I know I can do quality work. It might have taken me longer to do it than it took you to do it. But I still can produce quality. And when I can produce quality, I build confidence. Because I've done it once, I can do it again. And I can transfer that to other areas. In my own experience, you know, I told you I was retained in school, I was a non-reader. The teachers would say that in front of the class. I mean, it was incredibly damaging to me as a child. When we do the read aloud, and I couldn't read. And again, discovered dyslexia later in life, But back then they just said I didn't try hard enough. Well, where did I get my confidence and build my confidence? Through sport. I started playing basketball, just on my own, nobody else, but I started experiencing success. So we need to find the hook. Where's the hook? Because that confidence there leads to other confidence elsewhere. And that's just another reason to pursue one's passions. But when you think about building self-esteem, let your children struggle. Long as it's in a safe situation, you know. Don't have the 2-year-old with the steak knives, you know, cutting up the vegetables or something. But let them struggle, let them challenge, because that success is so powerful and it builds that intrinsic motivation.
You said you would share your mistakes with your children.
Oh, I got it. That's going to be in a book. I mean, there's so many. You know, I will say a couple of mistakes to my children. My older children, I think I worried about the wrong things. I think I put way too much pressure on them. My oldest daughter is 32 years old, and I thought she had to be the best at everything. She had to be the best. She had to be the best student. She had to be the best athlete. She had to be the best musician. She had to be the best at everything. Excuse me. I'm not the best at everything. But why did I have to expect her to be the best at everything? If we try to live vicariously through our children, because there's certain things that maybe we didn't do or didn't achieve, and we say, well, I'm going to make sure my children do that. Well, what I try to do, and you know, I've learned from some of those mistakes, and my oldest daughter and I have talked a lot about that. You know, and I didn't realize at that time I was putting as much pressure on her as I did. So each child benefited, and there's a whole lot written about birth order too. If you've never read about birth order, you know, do a little of your own homework or research on birth order and look at the impact of first child, second child, middle child, and those things. But what I've tried to do more of as I've had more children is to say, let's focus on their interests. Let's focus on those things they do well. But let's focus on them being good people. Good people first. Because, you know, each of them have different talents, as we said, and those of you who have more than one child realize that. But there's a real danger of trying to make your child fulfill the dreams that maybe you didn't achieve. Just coming to some closure here, I just want to touch on self-efficacy because it directly relates to self-esteem. And that's your ability, a person's belief in his or her own ability to succeed at something. If you don't have confidence in one area, you're likely not to be successful in another area. It's really that mindset, and it's developing that mindset. If you're going in for an interview, and many of you, I'm sure, have been interviewed for jobs and things like that, but if you go in for an interview and you go, oh, there's no chance I'm going to get this job, I'm just not good enough. But if you go in there, I'm confident, I'm a good candidate, I want to express my skills and my ability to that person. But we only develop that by taking them outside their comfort zone, creating experiences that give them multiple opportunities to develop, hone, and apply those skills in different settings. So that whole idea of self-efficacy gets played out as we're working and dealing with our children or teachers working with children at a very young age. I think a couple last slides. People who have a strong self-efficacy really believe they view challenging problems as tasks to be mastered, as opportunities. Here's an opportunity rather than a barrier. Develop deeper interest in the activities in which they participate. You can read these, I don't need to read these. But recover quicker from setbacks. Resiliency. Resiliency. What an important skill. Somebody asked me one time if I could give my child one skill, what would it be? It'd be resiliency. Because in life you will get knocked down. But it's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get up again. You know, and you come back and you say, what did I learn? What did I learn from that? So setbacks. So go back to what I talked about those struggles. When a child has to struggle through something, that learning goes so much deeper. And their willingness to stick to something becomes developed. Because if we intervene and fix everything for them, they never experience that. Then they're 30 years old, and when something doesn't work out, they have no idea what to do. They have nothing to draw upon. Okay, last couple slides. You know, people who have a weak sense of efficacy, they avoid new opportunities. They won't try things. They'll only stay in that comfort zone. And if that comfort zone's small because they've had limited experience and opportunities, then they're probably not going to try a whole lot of things.
and they'll give up very quickly and lose confidence in their abilities. Okay, I think it's about time, right, Anil? Is it? Yeah. I've gone too long, I'm sure. We're happy to stick around, answer questions, share ideas, thinking, talk about Vega. I think we have a little buffet or some snacks for folks, right, Anil? And I thank you for coming. I thank you for coming. And please understand, any of us here are happy to talk to you at any time, assist in any way. You know, I've got children, you've got children. The more we talk, the more we share, the more we work together, the more we're going to help all of our children be the best they can be in better places. So thank you very much for your time today, and thanks for coming. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you have more questions, I think we'll have some tea and coffee outside, and you can ask Steve separately. I think we'll continue outside if it's okay. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.